Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and thank you for the introduction. So I'm Neil Grigg, my business partner and best friend Tom Foote. So a little bit about us. Tom and I met at Cynhadledd Agricultural College down in Devon. A long time ago now. And I guess our friendship was what it is when we were at college, and I guess we weren't ever going to be business partners. We had our own sort of different family, involved with our own different family farming businesses. But I guess life goes on, and I guess in 2009 we were at sort of crossroads in both our sort of farming careers. And Tom and I got chatting one day and said, "Do you fancy doing something?" Because we both wanted to get into dairy industry. Before we sat down and said, "Yeah, I think we will." And how are we going to do that? I said, "I don't quite know," because we didn't have a farm. So we thought, well, actually, what we're going to do is try within the next 2 years to see if we can get a tenancy or a contract farming arrangement or some sort of joint venture arrangement whereby Tom and I would hopefully be able to start dairy farming. And I guess the thing that we both realised very soon is obviously we need the right sort of stock, and it's like, well, actually, while we're looking to get a farm and try and see if there are any opportunities out there for us, we'll start by rearing some stock.
Right, so what you can see here is our first cows we bought. We started off and bought 60 empty cows off the other dairy farmers. Obviously, with this slide, they weren't quite so empty. We sort of cold called any farmers we knew, any landlords we knew, have you got any land? And basically managed to get the odd field here and there. We even grazed a roundabout on the side of Poundbury, Prince Charles's development down in Dorset. And then that's the building site. And then we can move on again, Neil. And these were affectionately known as a swamp donkey. So this ground was some water meadows, hadn't been grazed for 15 years. An old retired farmer just let them go. And so by knocking on doors, asking a few people, we managed to get little pockets of ground around about the place. I had about a 60-mile round trip checking cows, and we got up to 115 head of stock by 2010, I think, but all bought £50 above coal value, but from farmers who said, look, I think if you give this one another go, you should get back in calf. So the quality of the grazing there obviously didn't have to be very good because they're mature cows. They just needed a year off and get us going.
I think at the same time we bought some heifer calves, so we started doing some calf rearing, again with that plan that actually by the time they come round to be in-calf maiden or in-calf heifers, that we'd have a farm to try and to milk them on. So I guess in this period of time of rearing stock, taking run-arounds around and trying to get them back into calf, we started obviously trying to apply for tenancies, and I think we applied or sort of got involved with 10 different opportunities, Tom, wasn't it, at the time, and it's like there's always a reason. We didn't have the capital, we didn't have the stock, we weren't just the way it works when you're trying to apply for tenancies and various things. And I guess it came down to in the end this opportunity, which actually is where we are now, which is Longlands Farm. So as you can see, this is actually a large block of land. This is just under 1,000 acres. Predominantly arable, and really it was one of those sort of things where we put our hat in the ring thinking, well, I don't know quite how we're going to get on here, but it was so close to where Tom lived. I thought, well, if it's nothing ventured, nothing gained. That's exactly where we were with it. And I guess we were lucky enough that the landlord actually took a punt on Tom and I and said, right, I think we'll give you guys a go if you want to go dairying. So our plan at that point, Tom had sourced an old 2040 herringbone parlour, wasn't redundant, in a shed. And then the plan was that we now at 300 ready to calve in January 2012. That we would then set up this new, it was a effectively greenfield site. From a dairy point of view, no infrastructure, no slurry pits, no parlour, obviously no water supply. And I suppose it became apparent very quickly that actually this was an opportunity that we didn't want to let go. But actually, how were we going to capitalise this as a new entrance to the business? Obviously, we had some very good support from our bankers, but actually very realistic support that actually, guys, we can't, this is, we wouldn't be able to capitalise this. So then Tom and I remember one Sunday afternoon, Tom and I, we sat down and said, what are we going to do then? Are we going to just give this opportunity a miss, or are we going to think outside the box, and how are we going to do this? And I think we had a bit of a moment where we said, right, we're not going to let this go, but how are we going to get dairy farming? and this was it.
So I guess in 2009, when we set our goals, it was to milk 300 cows on 250 acres on a farm somewhere. Anyway, we had this opportunity that was nearly 1,000 acres, so it's 3 times bigger than what we wanted. We had 300 cows ready to go, but the infrastructure was too much. So we'd met an old boy on the Somerset Levels who was milking out of the old hosier milking bales. He had 170 cows, and he was milking these. The value of his parlours was about 150 quid. So after seeing him and talking to him, we thought, well, let's find some hosier bales. Well, we went one better and found this thing in a hedge, which was a temporary bale that people were using if they're going to install a new parlour in their existing buildings. They'd hire this in. So we picked it up, took it back to the workshop, and set about working on it to try and make it. I mean, it would take about a day to set up, moving it from farm to farm. We were wanting to move it every day, so we had to sort of mechanise it slightly, put some hydraulics on it, and because we were going to be using it in fields, a levelling system. So as I got sort of busy in the workshop trying to put it right, Neil got busy sowing grass seeds. So we borrowed a tractor from his dad's and an old seed box, and so sowed in October 11, 600 acres of grass, and then we're busy putting the parlour together.
And I think the key for us was new business, limited capital. How are we going to utilise that capital to the max? And I guess what we steered away from was anything that was going to depreciate. And actually, we borrowed a lot of money and bought more cows, because obviously we could just, I guess the unit wanted more cows than. So I guess the whole logic with the opportunity we had was that let's try and utilise our capital in I guess, excuse the sort of speak, but ultimately in assets that are going to generate us income, rather than, I guess, borrowing money to lay down concrete and buildings in effectively what was a very short-term tenancy. I think that's the bit we want to make clear, is that the opportunity we had was for a 5-year lease and with no compensation for provision. So if we had to move away from that farm after 5 years for whatever reason, albeit we've had that fortunately extended now, we would have to leave that behind. Whereas actually, when we're thinking a little bit outside the box, let's build a parlour we can take with us. Let's lay all the water pipe above ground. Let's take that. Let's invest in cows that are going to hopefully generate us some cash. And you can just see with the logic of what we were thinking is actually, had we were given the opportunity for a farm tenant, if we had a tenancy for 250 acres with a fully established dairy unit, I very much doubt we would have been going down this route. But it was the opportunity we had, wasn't it? And it was like, how do we sort of overcome that little obstacle? And I guess that was the driver for where we went with it. So yeah, so we bought cows, actually imported them, in calf from Ireland at the time. We were trying to actually improve the genetic merit of our herd, because as many other people said, it's actually our herd nucleus of our herd at this point was built around other people's cast off. So actually we're trying to think, well, actually let's get some good genetics in the herd and start building the herd now from some high genetic merit stock.
So this was, I think, about the 25th of February 2012. We started milking in the silage pit. One, we didn't know whether the cows were going to escape. We had 500 heifers at this point, and 40 cull cows. So we started milking in the silage pit. We were building the parlour as we went. It started off with just 8 aside. We managed to cut it about a bit and get 14 aside and put a few extra units in. So by the time we got to middle of February, we moved out into the field for the first time. And I think we had, to milk 200 cows at the time, I think we had 5 people taking 5 hours. By the time we got to May, which is the next slide, we were 2 people were milking 400 cows in 2 hours. So just the cows, the heifers learning to climb up on the parlours. The parlours had ramps, so they were all a bit slippery. So you're putting grip bars on, and I was attacking the parlour at 3 o'clock in the morning with the welder quite regularly in that first year, just trying to get it right and make it easier for the guys that were doing most of the milking.
I think time goes on very quickly. We thought, good, we're doing all right here. This is kind of coming together. And then, I don't know if any of you remember the summer of 2012, but we had a bit of that, which is a bit of a challenge. So I guess there was a bit of flooding going on. And then we kind of hit the winter of 2012, and I think a few of the local guys laughed at us saying, why do you need a water trough in that field? So that was, and then I think, oh, all these 1 in 100-year events, how can that ever happen again? And then we had April of 13. So that was a bit of a challenge, wasn't it? Do you remember that?
So whilst Neil's in the office running the numbers, I was running around. We've got water pipes along the edge of every field, which obviously the parlour feeds off, and I was unscrewing taps with numb hands. The water was live in the pipes, but the taps were frozen up, and then holding them over the exhaust of a tractor, trying to defrost them, and then gradually getting half a turn to open the tap, so you could actually get some wash down and some water. But we got through it, and then things improved. As I say, we got into 2013. So that winter we built a new parlour, and then in the winter of 2014 we built another new parlour. So bespoke, done in the workshop, designed exactly for what we wanted to do. We off-hired the old parlours that we had adapted. And yeah, some new kit. We had to up the milk storage slightly with the cow numbers increasing. So we started sort of with 500 cows, and we're 680, then a 770. And we're going to be, I think we've got 950 to calve this year. So then milk storage, we went from a trailer on the back of a tractor to this army lorry with a milk tanker body put on top of it. So that's 8-wheel drive, and you can get us across the ground when it's wet. We're on pretty good dry ground, so you only sink in a couple of inches, and then you're down on flint and chalk, and you can get through.
Another sort of infrastructure cost-saving exercise at the time was, well, it has been, and it's working really well now. This is actually when we started, so we had 2 of these mobile water troughs. So effectively, we've got no water troughs permanently in any field, so we save that capital cost. These obviously, now you see the little flexi pipe that then comes back to our ring main. The only addition we've done since this is we've next to the same trough actually, but we've got the mineralisation system that we've sort of designed and put on top. Obviously now all the minerals go. We're mineralising all the cows and bloat. I guess it came actually from an instant we never had any bloat, and then suddenly we had one season where we had bloat. It's like, right, how can we deal with that? So we've dealt with that now, and that kind of works well. So this system works exceptionally well. The troughs move around with the cows. Literally everything moves with the herd.
A few issues that we've had along the way is living with TB. So we've been in and out of TB since we started. We've actually now come clear of TB 2 years ago, but obviously handling cows, which we tried to put to the bare minimum, but TB testing, we have 2 mobile races which we put off the front of the parlours. The cows come out in the same order, and so that's the handling side of things. Any sick cows or mastitic cows are just loaded straight into a trailer and taken back to a sick parlour on the farm.
So I know that Tom and I have kind of made the assumption you know what we do, but I suppose we are effectively a conventional grazing-based dairy farm. Nothing exciting, nothing different. It's all about forage. The only difference, as you probably tell what we're saying, is that we move our cows. We move the parlour to the cows rather than the cows to the parlour. So we've got no tracks, and effectively we don't do any parlour feed or in-parlour feeding. So effectively they come onto the parlour really well, really chilled out. We've got a very Jersey cross Friesian herd where we're yielding about 4,400 litres and 9% solids.
The motivation is all grass breaks. So a collection yard is a grass break. So to get the cows in the morning, you wind a reel up and they'd have 3 acres of fresh grass. So they'd all rush in, graze that, and then after 20 minutes, by the time you fired the generator up and got everything running, washed the parlours down, you'd get the hungry ones. So 50 cows would be in the parlour ready to go and standing on the ramps waiting, and then the younger, say the smaller heifers, would be lying down. So most of the cows are lying down in the collection yards. And then to get them to come through the parlour, they're always going onto fresh grass. So they'll have a milking break, as we call it, which will last them until 12 o'clock when milking's finished. So that pulls them through. And then For the 10% that are left at the back, the smaller heifers that haven't got the grass during that first milking, we'll then pick the wire up again and give them an afternoon break. So the cows that haven't fed well can always get into that. Then the evening milking, we'll the same thing again. We'll pick another wire up and then they come in for fresh grass behind the parlour again. Yeah. In sort of, I guess, feed deficit time, we've just started feeding concentrates. We're using like a 19mm sort of pig nut or dry cow roll. We load a trailer up. We've got a little 5-ton trailer, open a grain chute, tip it up and drive across the field and put the nut straight on the ground. So in the spring and in the autumn, we can feed up to 5 kilos in front of the cows, and that also is increasing their dry matter intake. This is moving across the field. The cows, tend to follow the parlour because it's going to a new bit of grass. We're not flat. We're on undulating chalk downs. There's a fair bit of steep ground about. These things will level themselves up on reasonably steep slopes. The new parlours have got steps on the back and steps on the front. Someone, I think, once told me cows couldn't walk up steps or walk down. But we put these on, and actually the cows love it. It's far better than any ramps we've got. And I think they like standing on them, taking the weight off their front and sort of moving the weight to their back feet a bit. So they congregate around there quite well.
So effectively we're block calving, so we start calving the 20th of Feb with the heifers, 1st of March for the main herd, and a fairly tight, we've created now over time quite a tight block calving system, dry off mid-December, a little bit weather dependent, but as with most, every grass-based farm or any grass farmer, ultimately we create a surplus at various times, so, and the surpluses we're harvesting and then feeding out when we've got a deficit. But I guess that just the point we wanted to make here is we've got this little machine which actually is donkey's years old now, and this is actually a photo a few years ago. But what we're trying to say is that we've used this machine effectively to harvest it, and we use the same machine to feed it out. So then we'll feed silage out in the paddock when we've got a deficit, and effectively that is what happens. So we've got 800 cows in the line, and we'd feed them some grass and obviously the rest of the ration with silage. I guess the compromise to this system very much is that this is a dry day, so we'll feed silage. On a wet day, we'll just give them more grass, and that's, I guess, a little bit of how we manage it. We've just got to be a little bit adaptable. If it's a wet day, we might not choose to feed concentrate cake and feed them more grass. So that's just a little bit of the flexing in the system that we've created with a little bit of time and experience. So I guess effectively that's a little bit of the cycle of the sort of the grazing season. Then we're drying everything off and then taking them off farm, and we rent arable land, and we sort of off on winter crops.
So this slide here is deferred grass. So this is sort of just a 1-year ryegrass lay with bales. We just give them a break of grass and bales each day. But the main source of food, we use turnips and silage bales on other arable farms. So we're renting about 650 acres of arable ground for 3 months. And where we're trying to build up the trust with these arable farmers, we won't take a tractor near the field, in the wet times. It'll all be set up in August. And so all we need is a truck and a penknife. You go out, you can move a wire, cut the plastic off the bale, roll a ring feeder over. I'll take over. Click on. So this is the existing beef yards that came with us on the farm. So when we've got room for about 400 cows here, so what we'll do is we'll bring the 400 closest calving back. They go into these sheds. So we try and carve everything inside. And then as soon as they've calved, they'll go over. We've got a small sort of antibiotic parlour or a sick cow parlour in the shed. So there'll be milk there 3 times. That's all right. And then once they've got the all clear for the tank, they've had their California milk test, then they're outside. So all the milking in the field is all healthy cows. The guys that milking out there have just got to put units on and take them off and identify a sick cow to come home. So there's no risk of antibiotics getting into any milk. And so the outside operation is, the bare minimum is done. You can click on, boy. You just drink away. Once we've got the passports for the calves, they all go down to Neil's farm in Exeter. So we've got a young stock unit just outside Exeter, which is about an hour down the road. They go into an old grain store where they're kept in there, and then as soon as the weather allows it, they go on outside.
Right. I think you said that. So yeah, so they stay in. I mean, we try and keep them in not very long, really. Obviously on weather conditions, I guess at that time of year, hopefully the weather is getting a little bit better. Keep them in pens of 10 or 12 initially, then into mobs of 40 in the shed, just get them trained on the feeder, and then we're out, and then we keep them in mobs of 65 out in the paddock using milk feeders that I'm sure you're all very much aware of. We're rearing about 300 heifers and about 100 bull steers. We also rear our own bull calves as well, which we use on the herd. And then obviously we've built these shelters as well. So I guess we start getting them behind a fence at a month old, and then we move this one on every 24 hours. So they get a fresh break of grass every 24 hours, and it kind of works quite well. We don't get any coxy issues, very little, no disease issues. They're just always on fresh ground, moving on, and you'd be amazed how quickly they grazed. So they get some concentrates. It's just getting the right balance between that, coming off milk at 8 to 9 weeks, transitioning onto some concentrate, and then actually being fully fed on grass by about 16 to 18 weeks. I guess we will feed concentrate if we have to, but we measure the grass and grass quality. I guess it's key to us getting on average 0.6 kilo of daily live weight gain to get these girls back in calf for 2 years. Thank you. To calving at 2 years. Our bulling weights are between 270 and 300 kilos, and actually our fully grown mature live weight of the herd is 450 kilos. So we've got a very, very hardy, dynamic, light, great grass converting cow, which is the right animal for the right breed of animal for the system that we're trying to operate.
So we were using LIC genetics and had a high focus on herd improvement, but sort of 2016 hit us pretty hard. We're on a milk price of about 16p a litre, below our cost of production. So we dropped AI, that was a £25,000 saving, and we went all bulls. We've got a bit of a contract going with another business who rear longhorns to go on pizza, so they mince the whole animal, get a very high quality mince. So we've got a number of longhorn bulls, and actually what we're trying to do is evolve in Dorset is we're going to go all beef bulls on the herd. So we run about 60 bulls at the moment, but we're going from sort of a dairy bull to a beef bull, and then as Neil said later, we're going to sort of start a second unit, which will be sort of like an AI bred high genetic herd to rear the replacements for this farm. So simplifying the operations up where we've got the big numbers, and then concentrating a little bit on the other farm.
Yeah, I think Tom alluded to the fact that 2016 was a bit of a year for us. Really, that was as a young business, like anything, borrowing a lot of money, and with a milk price that we couldn't live with. And Tom and I said again, it's like, how are we going to overcome that one then, Tomo? And someone said to us, why don't you make a bit of cheese? It's bound to add some value. Let's think about adding value. So we did, basically. So, where do we go? I'm flicking around. This thing's working a bit quick, isn't it? But hey, so, okay, joking aside, we're doing something quite unique, really. Cows are very free range, aren't they? And open air. And I guess we thought, well, actually, really, we ought to be able to start thinking about creating a brand. How can we market ourselves? We've been so busy trying to set up the business, but it was like, well, actually, do you know what? I think we can do something with this. And how can we add value? And I think it was, okay, albeit this is a relatively small scale, I think it sort of kicked us in to think, oh, actually, let's try and push the business a little bit more and see if we can add value to our quality product. So we've started making some manufacturing some cheese, albeit a small scale, but it's growing slightly, isn't it? Slowly. And I guess we've obviously there's Tom and Kelly and family with some of our cheese in stock, so we're getting it manufactured for us, but obviously it's all our own milk. We're selling probably 10 tons a year at the moment, but I guess with a very high butterfat milk, it's actually yielding quite a bit, taking about 7,200 litres for us to produce a ton of cheese, and it's maturing quite quickly. So it's certainly been one of those things where actually, I think the message we're trying to say is never say you can't do anything and actually give something a go. And I guess again, but give it a go without too much risk. We've obviously had to pay the manufacturing cost, but we haven't had to put any capital into any buildings. We've now got a product and we're thinking, well, actually, can we sell the product? And actually, we're having it's been really exciting. Actually, all local shops, about 15 or 20 shops in and around Dorset, are taking our cheese, and we're getting some interest now from some other. Nothing concrete at the minute, but hopefully there might be a few bigger contracts coming along the way. But that's sort of work in progress, which is quite exciting.
So someone said make cheese. We did that, and then someone said, "Can you build us a parlour?" So we did that. Again, we'd made the parlours you've seen with all second-hand equipment, new metal to make them, but a lot of cobbled it about. We've got 25-year-old hospital generators or ex-hospital generators, and the vacuum pumps, 700 quid. And I never looked at the labour cost in us building the parlours. And then someone comes along and says, "Can you build me a parlour?" So I sat down, scratched my head, and tried to work out what labour it would cost, and then tried to work out a margin. And so suddenly we've moved now into being a manufacturer. We're not trained in that. So last winter, we built our first parlour, which we delivered to Basingstoke. There was a bit of a draw straws on the farm of who was going to drive it. I was a stupid one that said, don't worry. So it was a 5-hour trip to Basingstoke. We went through the centre of Basingstoke and dropped it off at the Kingsclear estate. And then this is the one we built this winter, which has gone to Suffolk. It was 12 hours in the tractor was going to be a bit pushing it, and I don't think they would have let me around the M25. So we got that one delivered and literally finished installing it last week. Right. Yeah. That's it, arrived. And so we've had plenty of interest, which has sort of come along. I'm not particularly good at sort of public speaking like, but it's one of those things that we've got to get out and talk to the public. A local show, or our county show, said, would you come and milk some cows? So we picked a few cows up. We sold a heap of cheese sort of on site. And then we're just getting out, speaking to the public and telling them. And I think people like the truth. So if you can get out there and tell them the truth, don't let them look at these websites that have been created with, misinformation. And actually get out, shout about what we're doing, be proud of what we're doing, and enthusiastic about it.
I guess regarding the future, I think we're sort of, this is the last slide now. That sort of rattled through quite quickly, didn't it? But I guess from an operational point of view, obviously, I guess we're gaining efficiencies, and we're as Tom said earlier on the little young stock unit that we're the calves on. We're actually going to set up we're going to start building another parlour now, and then we're going to milk 250 cows on the young stock unit, and actually we're going to rear less heifers. I think we've always tried to rear more than we need to try and for the marketplace, but I guess it's about reducing risk, trying not to rely on the market and run on the vulnerability of TB, which is something which would upset the business model somewhat. So we're going to have that going on. And I guess the other thing we've done and relatively recently is we're not really promoting ourselves. I mean, it's very fortunate, and thank you for having us today, but we're not actually, it's been quite flattering that people have come to us. People have said, "Can you make some cheese?" We made some cheese. People said, "Can you build me a parlour?" So we did. But I think we want to actually try and see if we can develop our brand a little bit, and see what is out there. So I guess a key sort of focus for us for the next 12 to 18 months is actually to see whether we can develop the brand a little bit more and actually capitalise on some value in that somehow. Not quite sure, but we'll we'll see where that goes. And ladies and gentlemen, in a nutshell, that's us. So I hope you found that interesting.